This item that I want to bring up now is the history of the modern world. And this is the hard part. This is the hard part. On January 30th, 1933, and I quote, by entirely legal means, Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of the German Republic. Well, we know what followed there. It was horrible. And it was the most horrible thing that in my lifetime that ever happened. But the point here is that the Nazis, of all people, came to power by totally legal means. And of course, the rest is history. The continuation of the border strife between all of their neighboring countries in Europe and the deterioration and the horrors that followed from there. But don't forget, that a war was started, an unjust war was started in Iraq, thousands of miles away, by the Bush people. And remember that that war was not a border war or a border skirmish. It was, I think, 6,000 or 7,000 miles away. So keep that in mind when we think about wars and wars between nations, and why in God's name we ever got involved in Iraq. As Alan Greenspan once mentioned, it was all about oil, and I still believe that there's a lot of truth to that. Well, it's history, and it's bad history, and I advise all people to look very carefully about who you vote for, what they stand for, and what they have done previously. Now, Jack Kent has passed away, and I like the man. I think he was a very fine person. And it's hard for me to say these things because I do have many Republican friends, and I have them in my family, as a matter of fact, typically in most families. But I feel that I'm impelled to mention this information and pass it on to people who will be able to use the information in planning their future political choices. And heavens knows, hopefully the Republican Party can become more of a legitimate, truthful, honest party than we've seen in the past, and especially the mention of the 3 books I have just mentioned, and what has happened in the past, which is very, very serious, very bad, and should be considered by every American every time he goes to the polls. Let's hope that the people within that party can reform it and come up with something new, and we don't have this thing deteriorating into such a horrible thing that happened within Nazi Germany, for instance, during World War II. I was in that war, by the way. I'm a veteran of World War II, and my brother was killed in that war. I had another brother who came home, and I know the sacrifices, and I know about internal subversion. And believe me, that was a very common term used during World War II. It's not been used much recently. But when I discussed these 3 books and the stealing of elections and the manners in which these things were done, I was referring to basically internal subversion. And it happened right within the department, the National Labor Relations Board, by the way, which is what I mentioned in my earlier video. Well, I'm taking up a lot of time, so I better let you go ahead and do your research and make contact with your law professors or your economics or history professors, and hopefully you will become more, as I have, enlightened and educated about these matters. It's not pleasant to say these things, as I say, but that's life. God bless you, and thank you for listening.